viewers, and welcome to another episode of the Doomloop Dispatch, the news show that covers the worst parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm your host, Kevin L. Jones, and with me whenever possible is...
D. Scott Miller.
All right. Yeah, sorry. We had to take a break last week. You can hear in my voice. I'm very sick, but I care about this show so much. I'm going to push through because we have some wonderful guests today. On with us today is Nicole, Deane, and Viviana Nance of Care for Community, a nonprofit that campaigns for a people's agenda in Oakland. And what does that agenda include? Making housing a human right, investing in alternatives for real community safety, taxing corporate wealth to improve city services, and winning climate environmental justice for all. Most notably, they've helped out with the winning campaigns of Carol Fife and our the new mayor, Barbara Lee in Oakland. But they've also pushed some amazing measures, including Measure Q, which basically initiated 13,000 units of affordable housing, made it possible. Measure U, which actually will provide $350 million to fund that construction of affordable housing. And then Measure V, which is an expansion of just cause eviction protections for tens of thousands of Oakland households, actually 10,000 more Oakland households. So thank you, Nicole and Viviana, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to talk to you guys. Well, first off, let's just kind of get into it. On your website, it says that your campaign for Carol Fife really kicked off the organization. Can you get into the beginnings, the origins of Care for Community?
Totally. So Care for Community really came out of a lot of years of grassroots organizing in Oakland, including the Moms for Housing occupation on Magnolia Street in 2019. A lot of us were part of Mom's House Solidarity Committee that really helped kind of back up that occupation and holding it for 59 days. And we were canvassing the neighborhood before, during, and after the occupation itself. And then Carol Fife ran for office. We were door knocking for her every week. And after we won that election, Turha Ak of Community Ready Corps, who we organized with, basically sat us down and was like, don't stop door knocking. Please don't stop door knocking now that we're going into the belly of the beast. Like, we need to keep building the movement. We can't just be like, oh, we won the election, we're done. And so we literally just kept door knocking. And we've been door knocking every week since 2020. When it's not election season, we're not talking about candidates. We're asking people what they care about and how we can help.
Love it. Well, that's all that needs to happen, right? It's just somebody telling you you're on the right path. Keep going. That's great.
Perpetual campaigning. I mean, we have these election cycles and millions of dollars get spent to suddenly engage voters and try to do this thing. And then it all disappears in between. Then we wonder why people feel disconnected and disengaged from the process. I think keeping it going is important.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as I kind of like the beginning of your origin story, but how did you get hooked up with Fife and Moms for Housing in the first place? I mean, you said you were part of the coalition. How did you become aware of it in the first place? What exactly drew you to it? Were you invited, or did you just walk in on your own?
I've been privileged to organize with Carol Fife for 13 years now. So
there you go.
Yeah, I was working for her at ACE at the time. And Dominique and I were door knocking in West Oakland for the Black Housing Union and a neighborhood organizing group. And vacant houses were very prevalent. And it was one of the biggest issues in the neighborhood. People were like, there's all these vacant houses. It's blighted. People come and squat and sometimes use the house for not great purposes. And so that was kind of part of the germ of the idea of the Moms for Housing occupation.
Okay. And so the way we actually got initially in touch was, you guys just did this fantastic thread. Probably one of the best threads I've seen on Twitter about the recap of the election of Barbara Lee. I thought it was very insightful. I think that anyone who's not following you on Twitter should follow you on Twitter just for that thread. And to me, I'm so glad that you guys reached out to us, because that's what we're always trying to do, is we're always trying to piece together narratives from an alternative perspective. Like the way that people tell the story is often not grassroots. It's often not boots on the ground. So people miss a lot of the details of that thing. I'll get back to Carol Fife and but I mean, I really would love you to tell us the breakdown that you had of Barbara Lee election, the forces and factors that were involved in trying to push Oakland right, and the IEs and the dark money that was flowing through. So give us a rundown on what you saw, like from day one up until we actually like retook our city.
Right on. I'll start, and then I'll pass to Viviana to really talk about what she was hearing from voters on the doors. We see that the right has a strategy, particularly in liberal leaning urban centers, of a recall campaign that forces a special election. Special elections are helpful when your politics are not popular in a certain area. If you can have a special election, it's going to be low turnout. It's going to be wealthier, more conservative voters that do turn out, and you have a better shot at getting in a more right-wing candidate. And so that, we believe that was the strategy that was in place for both of the recalls against Pamela Price and against Shang Tao. Barbara Lee entering the race was a huge game changer and really messed with their strategy, to be honest. They were really counting on it being a low turnout election and on progressives not having someone ready to go. So Barbara Lee getting in the race was really, really key. Lauren Taylor had been campaigning for mayor for 5 years nonstop because he ran in 2022. And then, he never really stopped running. Empower Oakland was set up to promote him for that seat. And so he was really well positioned to take the mayoral spot. And Barbara Lee did a huge service to Oakland by stepping in because she's so well loved, and because of her leadership, like her ability to bring forces together that usually are on opposite sides of the issue. The Chamber of Commerce and all the labor unions, usually on different sides of the issue, but they came together around her. And so that made it possible to actually have a winning campaign. I think, from when we first started, we started pretty late. We started March 1st, the field campaign. I think because people assumed it was going to be a slam dunk, because she's always been a slam dunk in Oakland. Like, she's always won elections, like, no issue, without really being contested a certain kind of way. But slam dunk syndrome is really bad, especially for a special election, because when we started talking to voters, they were like, oh, I mean, Barbara Lee's got it, right? Like, do I even have to vote? And we were like, yes, you have to vote. It's very important that you vote. What did you hear from people about the special election?
So typically a lot of what I was hearing on the doors, people, they were really excited to learn that Barbara Lee was running for mayor. They were just like really excited to have had her like as our congresswoman, and to now like be able to take leadership in Oakland. I think it brought a lot of like hope to a lot of the voters. I know there was like so many concerns on the doors from folks with like people wanting the issue of like homelessness and all the encampments in Oakland. People wanted answers, people wanted solutions. And I truly felt like people, they knew Barbara Lee was the one who could come in and like fix and solve all those issues. It was also so different. We typically door knocked a lot, like in the hills for the special election. I know we door knocked like in the hills typically first, just to kind of be able to speak with some of those like high propensity voters, who are always voting first in the elections and always cast their votes early. And it was like such different like energy between like the people we were connecting with. Like, I know a lot of the people in the hills, when we'd ask them like what some of their top concerns were, they would like flat out say like nothing, like I don't have any concerns. And we would just be so shocked, like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. Wish it was like that for us, like in the flats. And there were also like a lot of people who seemed a little like closed off, door knocking in the flats. Like people, they were always like happy to see us or happy we were out there doing the work and canvassing for Barbara Lee, and just happy that, we were even in their neighborhood and just kind of educating people about the special election. But it kind of seemed like more so in the hills, like there were people who were like, what are you guys doing out here? And like I was saying, yeah, a little more closed off. So definitely a different dynamic between areas in Oakland and we canvassed.
Yeah, I live in Lake Merritt area, and you could actually distinctly see who was supporting who on the basis of the signs, right?
Yeah.
So it was Easter, I think, or something, and maybe before. But I took my little girl to take a walk over to Trestle Glen, and I noticed that every yard had a Lauren Taylor sign. The minute that there's a gate right there, there's a gate right when you're entering Trestle Glen. You're going up Lakeshore, and you take that right, and then there's this gate which looks like it could be closed and locked if they needed to. I don't know why that gate is still there, but when you walk past that gate, it all became Lauren Taylor signs. And I heard the same thing was happening in the hills as well. Like there was a bunch of Lauren Taylor signs. From your perspective, like being there on the ground with boots on the ground, how do you think that came to be? How is it that there was such a distinct difference, and how do you think that they were campaigning versus how Barbara Lee was campaigning? That made this really ridiculous schism. That was this very visual schism. Like, oh, I'm in Barbara Lee territory. Now I'm in Lauren Taylor territory. How do you explain that?
I think, him campaigning really early and pretty continuously, him having run in 2022. In 2022, he won that turf. That was his base in 2022. And remember that he lost by a really, really thin margin in 2022. He almost had it. So he had that going for him. And when I talk to voters in the hills, a lot of times people would self-identify as I'm a progressive Democrat. And these are two progressive Democrats. And I'm going to vote for the young guy that's going to bring the new energy and that's going to get stuff done because he's younger, I guess. And I would ask them, why do you think that Lauren Taylor will get things done? Because I can tell you that Lauren Taylor never got anything done when he was a council member. So where are you getting this? He's the get stuff done guy. And they'd be like, oh, tell me about him when he was a council member. The only piece of legislation that he got passed was the encampment management policy, which is a total failed policy. No matter what side of the issue you're on, you're so unhappy with that policy because it's unenforceable. It doesn't create any type of solution. So I think he really just honestly campaigning for years and having the kind of Sam Singer Doomlooper media machine behind him was critical, because we were going to the doors and we were hearing the same narrative from people over and over, just regurgitating those talking points. And when we would actually talk with them, sorry, there's a fly in our camera. When we would actually talk to people, a lot of times they would change their mind, or they would go from being for sure a Taylor voter to being undecided. But it's really hard to go up against that media narrative. It just on a scale, that's something that the right is doing better than we are right now.
Well, so how much did the shenanigans hurt the Taylor campaign, such as the fake ads or fake articles and the Black Action Alliance debate and stuff like that? I mean, it was so obvious, and we called it out all the time. We were totally on top of it, and I was shocked. If that stuff didn't hurt that campaign, I was gonna be like, oh, wait, there's nothing we can do anymore, because that stuff was just so poorly done. Do you think that helped the Lee campaign?
I think that KTVU forum was the best move that the Taylor camp had the whole campaign. That was the big gun, was that KTVU debate that was really set up to position him in every way possible. And we were door knocking in the hills the week after that debate, and like it helped him. And people weren't paying attention to like, what are these organizations? People bought it because it's inside baseball, and a lot of people don't know. You know, shout out to Carol Fife for always calling out the bullshit. Like, I think the fact that she did that publicly was a huge risk that she didn't have to take, and I appreciate her every time she does stuff like that. But I think it was the biggest move that he had, and he didn't have anything after that. And so he did get a little boost from it, but it was not enough to compete with how well-known, well-loved Barbara Lee is. The fact that she was endorsed by the Democratic Party, by this huge breadth of coalition, ultimately it wasn't enough, but it was a good move.
Well, you know, when we covered it, we actually covered that debate when it actually happened. And the thing I found most interesting about it was, and this is going to relate to my next question. The thing I found most interesting about it is that I personally thought that he came off really badly in that debate. I thought that Barbara Lee was far more prepared. I think that, like, you know, and the thing is like, you know, if there was a parallel, I mean, I felt as if that this was the Biden CNN moment. They were hoping to create a Biden CNN moment. You know what I mean? And Carol Lee, and Mayor Lee was going to be fumbling and bumbling and that, but instead, like, he came off as this kind of like Doomlooper, almost like MAGA kind of. His narrative was very Oakland is a drain.
Like,
Oakland is broken.
What?
Yeah. You know, so I mean, to me, I mean, like, but so this relates to my next question. Okay, so that was the reception you were getting in the hills. What was the reception you were getting in the flats around Lauren Taylor? You said that people were really excited about Lee, but what was the perception you were getting in the flats about Lauren Taylor?
Okay, yeah, I would definitely say a lot of people in the flats, like, they already kind of knew Lauren Taylor and his antics. You know, they remember him from like his term in council, and a lot of people brought up, you know, just like who he was funded by, and just were, again, just saying how happy they were that Barbara Lee was running because they didn't trust him. They didn't trust his leadership. And then a lot of people also brought up, you know, that legislation that he passed, the encampment management policy, that a majority of people, they absolutely hated. So I would say definitely a lot of people, they were just not in favor of him.
What about his district? Like, I thought that was one of the most interesting things, is in his district where he had even more name recognition because he was council member, like in the flats. How did people talk about him?
Ooh, well, in the flats, in the flats, I would definitely say, again, because that was his district, I would say like he did have like a good majority of like support over there, but I would like still like get those like people that would say, you know, he wasn't so much of an effective council member when he was like in office, and I didn't really like the way he ran.
It was a really stark difference from the D6 Hills to the flats. Like D6 Hills, he had really strong support. And it was clear that he had done a really good job as council member of making those voters like feel heard and advocated for. And then in the flats, it was like, oh, he was my council member and he didn't do shit for the neighborhood. Or, he was my council member, but I never saw him.
Okay, and were people at all aware of, like, say things like Seneca Scott, for example, and there was like those of us who were actually inside the internal dialogue of what was going on, as far as like those of us tracking the funds, those of us tracking the influences, trying to like get to the bottom of like how far outside of Oakland. And then we had, like, of course, the Phoenix Project dropping the AstroTurf network, which Kevin and I, like, you know, have worked with them in order to create. Was there any kind of talk about Seneca Scott at all in the flats or the hills? Did people know who this person was at all, or did he stay behind the scenes?
I think that person has a national audience on Twitter of right-wingers that don't live in Oakland. And so the megaphone on that site feels loud, but people in I never heard people talk about him.
Right.
And the only people I did hear talk about him were LGBTQ people that were pissed that Lauren Taylor had that association with him, and was so cagey about condemning the really, really obnoxious homophobic and transphobic rhetoric from that person.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing that's really interesting, because I mean, like his name did seem to pop up on occasion, but then it would just go and be subsumed right back down. And I always found, like, I was like, well, what are people hearing out there? Because, like, to me, there are a couple of things that are just clear vision, right? Like, Lauren Taylor was definitely being backed by right-wing influences. He was definitely being backed by, so were there people who even understood that? Or was it just this whole thing about, okay, well, he's black, so he must be a progressive Democrat? Like, were there people even analyzing that at all?
I definitely think, honestly, when the billboards started going up and there were so many billboards and so many ads, that was when I started really hearing the backlash, where people are like, that costs a lot of money. Who's funding this dude? Like, that's a lot of money. Why is someone spending this much money to try to get me to vote for this person for Oakland mayor? Like, it's suspicious. I think Oakland voters, particularly in the Flatlands, are savvy in that way. Like, they're like, what's behind this, when they see the huge, like, spectacle of money being spent.
Well, which is the exact opposite of the rest of the country. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, totally. And yeah, I mean, are people now aware of folks like Philip Dreyfus, who's really funding all this kind of stuff, like, who's clearly on a mission to buy up as much of Oakland for cheap as possible,
Yeah, I think that it's definitely become a lot more well-known, like, since the recall actually happened. And I think, groups like Community Ready Corps that are really on the ground and that are, like, doing their cleanups, talking about the Doom Loopers and the Philip Dreyfuses that don't care about you and don't care about your home or your business and are here to drive down your property values and get you to leave the city. Like, I think they really pushed that message in a way that actually reached people, which is important because the media is not doing it for us. And even, a lot of the nonprofit sector, I think, got really disconnected during the pandemic. So I think there's still a lot more work to do to reveal those characters that are behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I just finished having a conversation with some people about some other things that happened. I say this SF school board recall, and the recall of Chesa Boudin. And a lot of these things were movements that happened as a result of the pandemic, because people could not organize on the streets. Yeah. So these AstroTurf networks, in their little, what they call parallel medias of Twitter and their little Reddit accounts and all that, they ended up grabbing like a market share of influence, right? And as somebody who couldn't go and knock on doors, like, during that period, right? Like how were people, like, I myself, I'm over here and I'm doing my journalistic thing to try to fight the recalls. What were the canvassers doing when we couldn't leave the house? What were the canvassers doing when we had to get the word out and we couldn't, like, really go and talk to people? Like, not really, I mean, we were still kind of very much fragmented, even though we had the vaccine and all that. We're still very much fragmented. How did you guys bring back cohesion? Because, like, clearly the cohesion wasn't there in the recalls, but the cohesion was there for the actual elections, the special election. It was there. So how did you guys get that cohesion back after it had been so fragmented?
I think, organizing is a discipline. And so the discipline of going out and door knocking every week, even if it's 2 or 3 of us, and slowly building this cohort of people that are committed to making this change happen and understand what it actually takes to create the kind of change that we want to see. We want 5,000 units of deeply affordable and supportive housing that get people off the street. And we understand that we have to talk to tens of thousands of people on a regular basis to make that happen. And we have to get them engaged in a certain kind of way. And so I think it's very, like, slow, unglamorous, just like one door knocking shift at a time. I think that's what C4C has done right. And the people that I started C4C with have been really disciplined and committed in that way. Nate, top door shift volunteer, like works in tech, has door knocked every Saturday for the last 5 years. One time I was like, Nate, thank you so much for holding down this shift every single Saturday. And he was like, I just love door knocking. I think that's a part of what was able to build cohesion. It kind of builds over time. I think also, like, the pandemic has really done a number on a lot of people in terms of like mental health and social cohesion. And so one of the things that we've kind of pushed is like, this is a way to get back connected to the world around you. Like, come out and door knock, like talk to your neighbors, go see parts of the city, get off like the doom scrolling and come out and like see how beautiful Oakland is. Like, all these different neighborhoods are every neighborhood across the city has like something amazing to offer. And so, I mean, that's really what we've promoted. And I think that was important for Barbara Lee's campaign. Like I said, we came on late when they started realizing like, oh, Lauren Taylor actually has like his campaigning for the last several years actually has positioned him in a way that this is a competitive election. So we started late. And especially in the early few weeks, it was C4C volunteers that were on those doors, more so than like Barbara Lee campaign volunteers. If we hadn't had that group of people that we've cultivated over time, I think it would have been a different story.
Oh, I love it, though. I'm so glad you guys took the initiative, didn't wait around for something to happen, because that's probably what I would have done. I'm Mr. Procrastination. I'll admit it.
I have a thing where it's like, I refuse to lose these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? I'm like, hell no. Like, I will move the mountain to losing to them is unacceptable because they are the worst.
They are the worst. They are the worst. So, I mean, go ahead, Kevin. Go.
Oh, I appreciate it. So I want, after Lee won, Steve Heimoff wrote this horrible blog kind of talking about like, oh, don't Oaklanders know that it's the woke ideology that's taking them down, that's causing all this crime? And it's really there's this whole push away from, civic action and progressive values. And it was so awful to see that kind of talking down to the constituents as well. But I mean, I'm hoping, did you find in your door knocking too that there was an audience to this, that almost like people were going to be like, oh, well, if Lee won, it's going to be all over? And on that same point too, you guys, push these wonderful measures for affordable housing and stuff like that. Are you proving that kind of viewpoint wrong?
I mean, I think the like anti-woke, anti-DEI, anti-critical race theory, like, it's gone through these different rebrandings, but it's the same argument over and over and over again. And the right has been really disciplined about that argument for many years before it was political correctness. And then so it's gone through these different rebrandings, but they stick to a thing and they work it until it becomes common sense. And so I think that there is an audience for it if the left is not out there counter-organizing and fighting for what we believe in and bringing people back to reality. I did have the experience of talking to voters, particularly white, affluent voters, who were like, I like Barbara Lee, but she's kind of like the ideological, like, I think that like woke DEI thing, like, she's about, promoting symbolic things that are about like just Black representation, and like Lauren Taylor is gonna like get on the ground and do something about this crime and this homelessness. And so again, bringing people back to reality, to like, here's what Barbara Lee's done for Oakland. Here's the billions of dollars that she has won from this federal government, including under like the Trump and the Bush administrations. And here's what Lauren Taylor did. Like, these doom loopers do not have solutions. They don't have anything real to offer. And I think what we really learned from door knocking all the time is like most people are not on Twitter. Most people aren't even watching the news.
Nope.
Most people are like, do not care about politics because they don't see it as relevant to their daily lives. What they do see as relevant is like what's happening with their rent, what's happening with the trash on their street. I mean, this kind of thing. And if you speak to that, that's how you win people.
I mean, I think it's really interesting because the most ideological group are accusing the other group of being ideological, right? I mean, like so when we're talking about, like, say, like human rights, right? Like housing should be a human right. It really, that is not an ideological argument. You know, you're not there to and people of color shouldn't be killed by cops and be able to walk away from it. That also is a human rights violation. That isn't ideological. What is ideological, however, is talking about DEI, CRT, like those are ideological constructs, right? So I find it really heartening that you're telling me that people aren't really engaged in Twitter like that. People and people aren't really engaged, especially with television news, because like I think that if television news had actually had its way, including the Chronicle, though, really endorsing Taylor without not much explanation as to why. So on the ground itself,
Singer client, so it made sense to me.
yeah, we could do a whole episode devoted to Sam Singer. Jesus Christ. But I like, you know, the thing I find most interesting is like Kevin and I, we are not on the ground. We're just not. Like, we are in those spaces. We're doing our fights in social media. We're doing our fights in the newspapers. We're doing our fights in like, you know, our podcasts. So we spend a lot of time kind of like in the media sphere. We don't get a whole lot of face-to-face with people. If we're not interviewing you, we're not talking to you. You know what I mean? So I mean, like that's very hopeful. But at the same time, I want to ask on the other side, like, okay, what do you think? Because you've been on the ground floor, even with Carol Fife, and this fight has continued. As a matter of fact, Pirate Wires did a piece right before the election where they were attacking both Latifah Simon and Carol Fife in this thing they called the defund scam or something like that. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Huh? What you said?
The defund movement is looking like a grift.
Yeah, you know about the article. So what do you think their next plan of attack is going to be? Like because you guys you are infantry. You are our infantry. So what do you think? What do you think their next plan of attack might be?
I'm so glad you're asking me this question because I have an answer, and it's a long answer, but I think it will answer your question. So I think that these radical grassroots Black-led organizations in Oakland, CRC, APTP, Moms for Housing, those kind of groups, they scare the shit out of the political establishment because they consistently had thousands of people in the streets protesting for many years. And then they started raising serious money and winning elections. And the amount of repression and counterinsurgency that I've witnessed as that transition from protest to power has taken place makes it very clear to me that the status quo power structure, and definitely the right, sees that transition as a very serious threat. And so that first wave of counterinsurgency that we saw was the attempt to replicate the protest movement from the right. So you have these like fake groups like Coalition for a Better Oakland, Neighbors Together, and Safe and Empower Oakland. And they're all of a sudden coming in aggressively holding progressive politicians accountable for conditions they didn't create. You know, Carol Fife had been in office for 2 weeks and they were like, look at all this homelessness in your district. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's like,
oh yeah, Pamela Price getting the recall starting for Pamela Price before she even took office.
Yeah. And like, you know, I've been organizing on the ground in Oakland and around City Hall for 13 years, and I'd never seen any of these people before. So it was like, that's sus just right off the bat. Like, right. I've never seen you before. All of a sudden, it's this ridiculous thing. And I think that's because their advocacy starts from a place of profit. Like, it's the funders that are initiating it. There's a difference between raising money to do something and getting paid to do something, right? And so like CRC and APTP organized for 10 years before they started really raising money or hiring staff or any of that stuff. And when I see the right trying to scandalize their fundraising, like on Carol's campaign, they were putting out these mailers that said, this nonprofit has their revenue grew by 2,000% the year that Carol Fife got elected. First of all, do you know what 2,000% of $200 is? Like, they had no money. And what else happened in 2020 that might have led to a Black organization with a long history of challenging police brutality, raising more money than they'd ever raised?
Right.
Like, come on, like they think people are stupid. All of a sudden, progressives need to be held accountable and are like grifting off of city resources. The Schaaf administration was giving out money to Libby's network of nonprofits left and right. Like Lauren Taylor funneled $8 million to an organization that he sits on the board of when he was on council. And none of that was ever scrutinized. Like they were never tweeting about that. There were no podcast episodes about that. But now they want to scrutinize these organizations that have never even taken money from the city. Like it's a completely false premise. All they do is like community grassroots fundraising, which I also know because I've been involved in that. And it's no money from the city. So they do a fake protest movement, the like Neighbors Revolution, which was like 6 people hiding behind 24 signs. And then the media covering them like they were as significant as the thousands of people that were in the streets the years prior.
Right.
Through the media and their connections, I think, in law enforcement, which is a nice tool to have in your back pocket, they were able to get the recalls. But that's only half of the contract that they have with their funders. They're supposed to take progressives out and put the moderates in. And they haven't been able to do that. LaRon Armstrong lost. Bowders lost. Lauren Taylor lost. Warren Logan lost. And so I think what they're about to do now is they're going to study what we've done, like what our side of the movement has done. When these organizations aren't protesting, they're providing service. They're like providing relief to people that the government fails to deliver. Like CRC is the epitome of that. They are always out giving out groceries. They've been doing this gas and groceries campaign where they're like filling up people's cars. They bought a garbage truck that they're using to clean up illegal dumping. And people love them for that. Like people really, really, really love them. So what I'm seeing is the right is distancing themselves from those aggressive advocacy groups, particularly those that are run by psychos that are huge liabilities for them politically. And now they're starting to look, for organizations that are providing some kind of service. But they're going to do that service from the doom looper perspective. They're going to be like, look at how the city is failing these communities, and like we're going to step up and we're going to save it. That's the difference to look for, is like, how are people promoting the service that they're doing? Is it, we love Oakland and we're coming together to solve the problems and we're emphasizing the positive and positively impacting the negative? Or is it a doom loop narrative where it's just like, it's all bad and we're the heroes stepping up?
And that brings me to, so do you think that's kind of part of why Empower Oakland's going after OUSD right now and calling out the school board? Because it also, too, in San Francisco, that was kind of the beginning of those recalls. I mean, you had Chesapeake Deane, but I would say also a kind of bigger factor was the school board recalls that really kind of energized their base.
I think Empower Oakland overshot they overestimated their ability to win elections because they haven't done this and they're not good at it. They have money, but like having money doesn't make you good at politics. And so I think they overshot, and they're like, okay, citywide, like we don't have it. The school board is just, it's fewer people paying attention. It's just a smaller arena to play in. I think it's a smart move on their part. And I'm really hoping that the organizing that the teachers organizations are doing and the parents is going to contend with them, because I think if they start winning somewhere, they're going to build on that.
It's so funny to me though, because like I'd like to see how they're going to do this, because their whole thing is pretty much just for profit. It has to be for profit. It's land developers or it's tech. We're dealing, essentially what we're dealing with, even on the national level, is like a money grab, essentially just a gigantic money grab. It's a grift and a money grab. Bitcoins and the airplanes, but if it's not for profit, they don't want to do it. And what you're telling me is they're going to have to be generous in some kind of way, shape, or form in order to influence Oakland.
Yes.
Which is absolutely counterproductive to them.
And that's the beauty of the strategy, though. Like, because do more for the people. Right. Let's have a competition to see who can give the most and who can contribute the most value to disenfranchised communities that are suffering. If we can get them to do that, fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I see your strategy, though. I mean, like, I hadn't thought of that because, I mean, I've just been, my thing has always been the difference between grassroots and AstroTurf is that grassroots is from the ground, and grassroots does actually have principled things they're trying to get done. Like you're saying, like housing, you know, like these are principled things that people are trying to get done. What are you over there trying to do? Instead of trying to amass power and amass money, like what exactly is where does your principle lie? What is your principal position? So I mean, like I would love to see. I love to see them being like, hey guys, we're having a food drive. Okay, I'm not gonna be mad at you for having a food drive. Do it.
I'm gonna see it. I bet you. I bet you $10 you'll start to see the Empower Oakland food drives, or that, or new organizations pop up, or they'll look for organizations that they can co-op that have been out here that need funds, that money is a powerful tool. It's a factor, but yeah.
I mean, like, and that's what I love about Oakland. Oakland actually did something the rest of the country could not do. We ignored all the money and elected the Black woman. It's like the rest of the country couldn't do it. Oakland could do it. Ignore all the money and vote for the Black woman. We did that. So I mean, okay, so I want to get more into this because I'm finding it very interesting that you're saying that because Empower Oakland kind of like overreached, and now they're going to have to change up their strategies, which also means they're going to have to change up their leadership, right? And you're invested enough in Oakland politics to be able to tell me this. What do you think some of the roadblocks are going to be for Barbara Lee and her communicating with the people that you talk to? Like who do you think is going to stand in her way and in your way and making sure that the message gets out and making sure that, like, what do you think the enemy plans for you? What do you think I think that's the most clear way I can say it. What do you think the enemy plans for you? Because what the enemy plans for you, they plan for us because you're our infantry. Yeah. Right. So basically, like, we're the info guys, and you guys are like, we're kind of like the spies almost. And you guys are the infantry, right? So I mean,
system. It's really, we reached out to y'all for a reason. Like, the work you do is important.
Oh, appreciate that. So so like you told me what they intend to do in order to kind of like divert the people. So what do you think they're going to do to try to divert you?
They always are going to try to separate. They don't want you to have a relationship with the people, with the community. And so that's what those Pirate Wire articles are about. That's trying to scandalize grassroots organizations for raising money, basically. It's like they have money. They have you're always talking about our dark money. You have money too. So you're bad too, because money is bad. And it's like, money is energy. Money is a tool. Aren't y'all capitalists? Like, how are we having this conversation? Right. These organizations should raise money so that they can do their service, but they're going to try to scandalize that. And I think they'll do that with C4C more too. I think we've kind of kept a relatively low profile. It's really only their kind of like stunt dummies that have come after us online. We haven't really dealt with like big media attacks the way that some folks with bigger profiles have, but they're gonna, try to scandalize, like who's their secret donors, like, this dark money group. That's what I would predict. Yeah.
So it's like a little Darvo. What they're gonna do is they're gonna do that to you. I mean, it's already started. People are talking about Quinn Delaney like that.
Right.
And the thing that drives me so crazy about that is it wasn't about a billionaire or a millionaire investing into the process. It was about the fact that you guys refused to disclose who the millionaire and billionaire was. It had nothing to do with the money. The reason why people were really suspicious of, say, Neighbors Together Oakland, the reason why Neighbors Together Oakland could not meet the paperwork deadline that they had is because they had to disclose their donors. It had nothing to do with the money itself. You guys weren't going to tell us it's Philip Dreyfus. We had to turn over every rock to find Philip Dreyfus. So to me, I'm just counter strategizing with you guys on this particular point. Like to me, the issue was never about the money. It was always about the secrecy. It was always about the cloak and dagger elements, as opposed to the money itself. You know what I mean? I would love if George Soros would fund me. I would have no problem with George Soros funding me. Fund me, Soros. Fund me. You know, but keep it legal and keep it transparent. And I don't really see what the problem is. The problem was the lack of transparency. That's really what it was. So if the plan is to actually say, well, you guys are getting money too, we're getting money legally. We're getting money through transparency. Like nobody's slipping us checks underneath the table over here. We're actually being very
contracts or any of that. Like they're constantly acting like they're getting these taxpayer funds, and it's like, where? Show me. You know, taxpayer funds, that's public, right? Like they would have to vote on it, and you would be able to point to a contract that somebody got, and you can't because that never happened. But they rely on people's disengagement and ignorance. And so that's the other big thing that C4C does. I mean, when it's not an election cycle, what we're doing is we're asking people about their issues in their neighborhood. We're connecting how the local government should be helping them with those issues and can be part of a solution. And then we're getting people together. We do this training called How Oakland City Government Works, where we actually teach people how the government works and like who actually has decision-making power over the encampment management team. And how do they decide which illegal dumping spots to clean up and which potholes to fix? We are teaching people that, and that kind of like knowledge and information, it cuts that misinformation off at the knees because they're depending on people not knowing stuff. So they can do this like really subtle misinformation that people don't even realize because it's all just on a false premise anyway. If people are informed and understand how things work, they're way harder to fool.
Right. I mean, and that's I noticed that even during the Trump administration, in the campaign, where people like were saying that all he has to do is sign an EO, or sometimes even just wave his hand, and the problem can be fixed. And the same thing was true with like how much is a DA responsible for the crime in the city? How much is a mayor responsible for, like, say, OPD being overcompensated? How much is a mayor responsible for that? How much is a DA responsible for that? So they were really taking advantage of the fact that people thought the DAs actually could control crime. I got so upset because I kept getting in these arguments with people being like, that's not how it works. And then you know, how do you argue with that? How do you argue with that? They're like, well, you know, crime's gone up since the DA. Like, DA has nothing to do with that. Why would you think that? Did you guys run into those kind of arguments? Do you run into those kind of arguments? And what's the most common one? The most be like, no, it doesn't work that way.
The most common one is people have been told by Oakland police officers that their District 3 council member is preventing them from enforcing the law in West Oakland. Mm-hmm. That their hands are tied because the councilwoman told them, you know, you got to let people sell drugs. You got to let people engage in sex trafficking. You know, don't bother those criminals. Your hands are tied.
Blue flu.
I'm serious. And it's like, y'all. So what we do is we're like, hey, so the city charter actually prohibits, it's illegal for a city council member to give direction to city staff, which includes the police. And so if a police officer is telling you that, they're lying to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest one?
That's the biggest one. We hear that all the time.
Okay, so basically what they're doing is like Kevin was saying, they're doing the blue flu, right? I can't enforce crime, but but they're putting it
to the black woman council member.
Yeah, the link. So basically, what Carol Fife is up against in her district are like kind of like police officers being more like campaign managers or canvassers themselves, who are anti Carol Fife. They are the door knockers.
Yep. For
the anti Carol Fife contingencies.
The political activity of our police department is like one of the scariest things to me, and a thing that I feel like I wish more people really understood. Whatever you think about policing, police being disengaged in like political fights and trying to influence like who's in office and how budgets get voted on is bad. Like it is very bad.
So go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it affects, people. I mean, there's the footage of the San Francisco cops watching as robbers drive away from a dispensary because Jessup Deane was in charge. I mean, I had to file a police report recently, and I felt kind of scared because one of the things I had to point out for the evidence was a tweet saying I'm a defund the police guy. And they're like, what is that about? What does that mean? I don't know. It shouldn't matter. I can have my own opinions. Do your job. My taxes still pay for your salary. But it's almost like they see themselves to be able to choose who they want to work for.
If they want to work at all. I don't even know if they really want to work, actually. But I have a different kind of philosophy around police officers. I actually see them as like, hey man, they're my guns too. You guys aren't the only guys who can get the guns. I can pick up the phone and bring the guns over here too. I'm not worried about bringing over some guns, you guys. Those are my wolves also, like Kevin was saying. I pay for those guys. But can you give me an example of how the police have over politicized, like on street level? Like you gave us the one where they're saying, okay, Carol Fife is saying we can't do this. But you're saying it's and I agree. This is not a skeptical question. Tell me how else these bastards are doing that.
I mean, they were really blatant during the whole push for investing more money into violence prevention and not writing them a blank check. I mean, okay, LaRon Armstrong and Lauren Taylor went on a national media tour where they were like, OPD has been defunded and we are powerless to stop crime in Oakland. If I were a police chief and I was responsible for keeping a city safe, I wouldn't go on national TV and announce to the world that I'm powerless to stop crime. That was a signal, like, everybody come to Oakland and do your dirt because we're not going to do anything about it because we want more money. Like, it's contract season. And honestly, I've been working on elections since 2014 was my first one in Oakland. And every single election cycle and every budget cycle, crime goes up. There's a spike right before. And it's so messed up. Like, these are people's actual lives.
I love what you're saying here.
I can't tell you how it's happening. I can't explain the mechanism, right. But every election cycle, every budget cycle, it spikes. You can't tell me that's a coincidence.
Well, that is the thing that really actually got me involved in the process overall, was the fact that, like, in my neighborhood, I've lived here for almost 30 years. And, like, right before, I didn't even know about the recalls. I had no idea, but I did know there was some really freaky crime shit going on in my neighborhood. I mean, I live right near the lake, and it was just freaky crime shit. Yeah. It was just like it was just really freaky crime shit. I was like, what is this freaky crime shit? Like, I actually saw somebody holding a phone once. I was walking on the lake near Fairyland, and there was a person just holding a phone, like they're getting ready to take a picture, but there's nothing to take a picture of. And I was like, what is that person doing? Like, it was clearly they were setting up for a shot. They hadn't taken the shot yet. Then a guy comes driving up, hops out the car, bips the car, and then the guy takes the picture, he videotapes it, and then the car drives away, and the person walks away. And I was like, this guy was standing here waiting for this car to bip this car? Yeah. Like, he was just standing there setting up the shot. And then here comes the crime, bing, bing. And then he drives away, and the person who was taking the picture walked away. And I was like, that was a setup. That was clearly a setup. But that's anecdotal. Okay, now here's the thing. I know you guys, we only have 6 more minutes with you. You have a hard close. I would like to get more information about your organization, how people can get involved, and also about your affiliations. Who else would you like to shout out that maybe our listeners would appreciate? Yeah,
and is there any measures you're working on too?
Yeah, absolutely. That too.
So our group is called Care for Community Action. You can go to careforcommunityaction.org if you want to volunteer with us. We go out, we door knock every week. We organize neighborhood meetings where we teach people how the local government works. And we also do service days where we clean up parks and, help. Sometimes a lot of times when we're door knocking, we get in contact with elders that need, somebody to help them clean out their garage. Like we did that on a service day once. It's really like, it's nice vibes over at Care for Community. Like it's very warm, fuzzy stuff. We would love to have you all join us. We're not working on any ballot measures right now. Really, our biggest campaign is supporting Councilmember Fife's 5K plan to develop 5,000 units of deeply affordable, permanent supportive housing that will get people off the streets. She's been working with Wood Street Commons and Mike Piatok, who's an affordable housing developer and architect, on these like beautiful visions for housing with services that like unhoused and formerly unhoused people are helping design, because they actually know what's needed for that population that's been chronically homeless for a long time. So that's what we're working on, is basically freeing the public and vacant lands that the city, the county, Caltrans, OUSD, these different entities have access to that we could be using for this kind of housing. And so, yeah, Wood Street Commons does great work. We love partnering with them. Community Ready Corps, y'all should have on your show. Yeah, they're. I can't say enough about Community Ready Corps. Most of what you heard from me today, I learned from them. Also, to be clear. So yeah, what would you want to add?
Yeah, definitely Community Ready Corps needs to get up here. I absolutely love them, love their work. They're amazing.
We are doing a couple things that are coming up. We're doing a summer organizing fellowship. It's actually a paid training program for people that want to learn how to do this work. They can get paid to do it. And that's how we met Viviana. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that program?
Yeah, so I found out about the program through another youth-led organization where Councilmember Carol Fife, she was introducing the fellowship as an opportunity for like young people or just like pretty much anyone to get involved with like their city and like know the ins and outs of like how the local city government works, and just be able to learn how to, community organize, learn to canvas, everything like that. And I was super interested. I just wanted to be involved and I didn't know too much about it. And so I got connected to Nicole, and through that summer organizing fellowship, I learned just about everything, all about my local city government, how it works, who to call. I learned how to canvas, just so much important information. And so I'm so excited that we're bringing it back this summer. I'm actually going to be a part of that with like helping lead some of the trainings and everything. And yeah, just super excited to continue building our
machine.
Yeah, machine. Yes.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
And we need machines like you. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
we need factories for machines.
Thank you for all the work you've done. It's fantastic. And thank you for reaching out to us, because I learned a lot today. I mean, as far as like I said, we're locked in these screens. It's good to know that not everybody's like, this is my box. I'm in the box. I'm here. It's good to know that there's not so many people in these boxes like us.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you for being the boots on the ground, the eyes and ears on the ground, everything.
Yeah.
And, well, that's been another episode of the Doomloop Dispatch. Please follow us on all our socials. Please support us on Patreon. We'll be back next week. And until then,
keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for having us.